So, most of the women that I work with come to me when they are in a place that I call the space between. It's the space between their old life and the new one. They know where they're coming from, but not where they're going. They've made the decision to leave, even when that decision was forced upon them. A discard, the discovery of a secret life, a massive betrayal. Maybe this is where you are if you're listening today. And if that's the case, and you're on the threshold, so you're leaving your old life and walking toward your new life, you might feel chaotic, uncertain, confused, emotionally dysregulated, unsure of what to think or believe, and probably in immense pain and being extremely hard on yourself, blaming yourself for not seeing it sooner, berating yourself for not leaving faster, wondering if there's something uniquely broken about you that brought the abuse or betrayal into your life. If this is you, I've created this episode for you, and it's my hope that in the midst of all the emotional pain and confusion you might be feeling today, I can offer you an anchor, a starting place, a path that goes beyond narcissism research and leads you back to your self-understanding. Welcome to the High Achievers Recovery Guide. My name is Monica Yearwood, and this is the podcast where we explore everything related to high-achieving women and their recovery from professional and personal toxic relationships. Here we focus on how you can heal, recover strong, and create the life you envision for yourself. If you're tired of exploring who the narcissist is or your toxic partner, and you're ready to explore who you are and how you can heal, you're in the right place. Today, I want to help you understand why coming out of a toxic relationship is so hard, what the path of healing will demand of you going forward, and explore the deeper question of why this toxic relationship came into your life from a perspective you might not have heard of before. Then I want to provide you with healing tools that you can begin using today. If you're in the in-between place, so you just left a relationship, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. This is hard. This is painful stuff. This is not a quick relief to this work. But this doesn't mean you don't have a choice. You have a choice. You can choose to stuff this all down, to push this out of your psyche, to distract yourself, to numb the pain with anything you can find, a new relationship, food, wine, TV, shopping, friends, or maybe even going back to your ex for another painful cycle, or you can choose to authentically heal. Now, I know some of you listening to this right now may be thinking, Monica, I wish I could get this out of my psyche. That seems impossible. And if that's where you're at, I want you to know I totally get it. It can feel like the healing path was forced on you, like you're walking it because you're desperate to get out of the pain. But if that's you, I want to gently challenge this thinking, because in healing, what rises to the surface, the grief, anger, confusion, is exactly what is ready to be healed. It's just that you haven't fully taken ownership of your choice. And that ownership, once claimed, can be one of the most empowering steps you can take right now. And you can start claiming it right now. But understand this, even in choosing healing, there's no guarantee that it gets easier right away. There's no bypassing. The pain, loss, confusion, anger, guilt, all of it is essential. All of it is important. These emotions are not obstacles to your healing. They're part of it. They are the evidence that you're feeling and you're coming back to yourself after being silenced for so long. These emotions are not mistakes. They're messengers, and they've been screaming for you to listen for a long time. I know it can feel like you're lost in the ocean right now, like you're being pulled under by waves of grief, anger, guilt, confusion. But with patience and consistency and the willingness to listen, you will find calm again. You will learn from these emotions, and those very chaotic, painful feelings will become the paths to your self-reclamation. Real healing is not about skipping over the hard parts. It's about learning how to stay present with them and trusting that they are leading you somewhere far better than where you've been. There is often a fervor, an urgency to figure out why this happened to you. And at first, that search can feel empowering. It can become an addiction, though. The endless quest to decode what went wrong, often in the form of narcissism research, is valuable at first. Yes, it is. It gives you language, it gives you concepts, it helps you make sense of the madness you've lived through. You read the terms like gaslighting, trauma bonding, manipulation, and you recognize your life inside them. And you think, yes, that's me. That's what happened to me. And for a time, that recognition, that understanding of what was happening to you can feel like a lifeline. But what I observe both in the women I work with and in those who reach out to me years after the relationships end is that at some point the research stops moving them forward, because just knowing what happened isn't enough to heal what was hurt. It doesn't answer all the questions, because healing isn't about them, it's about you. And so in those moments when certainty begins to collapse, do I still love them? Why do I still miss them after everything they've done? Why do I feel guilty? Why do I still think about them? Why am I still blaming myself? Why did I stay so long when I knew? Why did I settle for terrible treatment? The instinct is to go back to narcissism research, to reread the articles, to rewatch the videos, to stand firm in what they did wrong, and I know that they did things wrong, and to push away the painful feelings. But the truth is, those feelings are not mistakes. They're invitations. And the object is not to conquer them or push them away because they're wrong or tell them that they're wrong, but to understand them and listen to them fully. I think it's important to pause here, to really sit with what you might be feeling right now. Because before we move forward, I want to explore why toxic relationships happen in a woman's life from a perspective you might not have heard of before. And then I want to tie this back to where you are right now so you can start to understand what is actually required to genuinely heal and not just escape the pain. Because while yes, of course, we want the pain to end, and it will ease as true healing happens, the goal isn't just to numb or outrun it. The goal is to move through it in a way that restores your relationship with yourself so you don't just survive, you reclaim your life. So you may have been told or come to believe, at least on some level, that your relationship evolved in a way because of your low self-worth, insecurities, or vulnerabilities. That you projected the unhealed parts of yourself, maybe from your childhood or previous experiences, onto the relationship, and it created pain. And that very well could be true. It's something I often see in my work and we explore deeply in my program. But it is never the whole story, nor is it even part of the story in every narcissistic relationship. To believe that everything happened was because of some unresolved previous childhood trauma or trauma in your adulthood can be a dangerous trap, and it can leave you vulnerable to predatory people, vulnerable to environments that normalize harm, thinking that all you have to do is resolve your own inner wounds and dissolve your projections can leave you in a potentially vulnerable position. We have to do more than just healing. We also have to educate ourselves on the predatory nature of some of the people that are alive and well in our culture in order to protect ourselves. And that doesn't have anything to do with our own individual childhood wounds. You might have also been told or come to believe that you just have to choose better. You might recall moments when you had a flash of unease, a sudden feeling that something wasn't right. Maybe it was a red flag you caught out of the corner of your eye. Maybe it was a thought, did he just lie to me? And for whatever reason, you didn't pause to explore it. Maybe you were scared to know the truth because it would have totally upended the life that you had built. Maybe you were afraid to lose the relationship. Maybe what you sensed conflicted with what you believed about your partner, so you doubted yourself instead. Maybe they revealed a past trauma that broke your heart to learn about them, and that became the reason you stayed, because you hoped that if you could help them heal, they would love you the way that they once did. There are many reasons why you chose to override the red flags that you saw, whether it was on the first date or it was 6 months in or it was when you had your first child. But instead of berating yourself, it's important to look at yourself with self-compassion and understand the greater infrastructure and cultural conditioning and programming we've all received as women that have encouraged certain personality traits, behaviors, and also suppressed our instinctual knowing. In addition to the fact that we live in a society that essentially disconnects us from our inner knowing. We aren't taught how to listen to our bodies, how to process our emotions or our feelings, how to recognize signs of abuse or mistreatment. So that, coupled with the encouragement of being agreeable and being nice, can drive many of these patterns and behaviors that leave us vulnerable toward abuse. Toxic relationships with narcissistic partners are not just personal problems. They are symptoms of wider social and cultural systems that tolerate and even reward manipulation, domination, and exploitation. Systems that encourage women to exchange instinctual responses for being nice, to be polite instead of protective, accommodating instead of discerning, agreeable instead of forthcoming. The result is the gradual erosion of a woman's self-protective instinct. Trying to be good, agreeable, over-serving, accommodating. These traits, so often praised, can drive a woman to choose politeness over self-preservation. Basically, a stranger puts their hand on her low back. When every cell in her body recoils from this, she says nothing because she's been taught that being rude is worse than betraying herself. She laughs at jokes that cut too deep, agrees to do things she doesn't want to, stays in conversations, relationships, and rooms where every part of her body is telling her to leave because being seen as nice feels safer than being seen as selfish, sensitive, or difficult. You've been trained to normalize the abnormal, to rationalize the irrational, and to make sense of the nonsensical. When a woman lives through repeated shocks to her psyche, betrayals, diminishment, abuse, she eventually loses her flight instinct, adapts by becoming numb, and accepts mistreatment as normal, unless she wakes up to reclaim herself. She will expect unfairness, expect cruelty, stop protesting, not because she agrees, but because she's exhausted and trying to survive. Her instinctual self is still there, but trapped under layers of psychological injury. So the emotional chaos you're feeling in early no contact or toward the latter part of your toxic relationship, however painful, however disorienting, is not a sign you're broken. It's not a sign you're weak or proof you failed. It's literally your soul's rebellion. It's your body, psyche, and instinctual self finally standing up and saying enough. It's the moment you flipped over the table in your life, shattered the old agreements of silence, survival, and self-abandonment. And yes, it is messy. It's irrational. It's illogical. It's wild. It doesn't fit nicely into neat boxes. It doesn't make sense to the people who always benefited from your compliance, but it makes sense to your soul because you can no longer smile politely and say, I'm fine, because you're not fine. And pretending you are would be a betrayal of the deepest truth trying to rise up in you now. Women say that they want to be intuitive, to trust the red flags they see, but they often underestimate just how deeply they've been socially conditioned not to. Protecting yourself absolutely requires that you heal yourself, but it also demands that you challenge the status quo to see that you have been part of a bigger pattern, not just a personal one. And it demands your willingness to feel your feeling because that's the language intuition speaks in. So how can you honor the wild eruption of your emotions, your grief, anger, confusion, instead of fighting them, instead of trying to contain them, instead of stuffing them down just to seem tame again? Let's dig into that. Let's explore how you can honor your emotions as the wise messengers they are, however messy, however inconvenient, instead of rejecting them or trying to control them. Because your emotions are not your enemy. They are the gateway back to yourself. Thank you so much for your time and your attention today. I hope that this information helps you. The rest of the podcast is available to my current students only. However, if you'd like to learn more about your emotional trauma response that has been caused by the toxic relationship that you've been in, I do have a free quiz, which you can take. The link is below in the comments. Thank you, and I'll see you on the next episode. Information helps you.